All right, welcome to POP Podcast. You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
Huge movie comes out, everyone's hyped, and then the internet just explodes with reactions, good or bad.
Oh, yeah.
But with Disney's new live-action Snow White, the opening weekend box office numbers, they feel more like,
Kind of a golf clap?
yeah, a polite clap instead of a standing ovation, something like that. We did a deep dive into the numbers, and there's this really interesting Associated Press article.
Okay.
And honestly, this whole story is a lot more complex than just did it bomb or not.
Right.
We're trying to figure out what's going on. We thought it'd be fun to kind of take you guys along with us on this.
For sure, for sure. This isn't just about how much money it made. I mean, it is. But it's also about what this says about how we as like a culture feel about these classic stories.
Yeah.
Like take the original, right? 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That movie wasn't just a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
It was like the foundation for the entire Disney empire. Like
Yeah.
literally, the Burbank studio lot was built because of that movie. Huge piece of history, right?
Yeah.
So when a new version comes out and it kind of stumbles, you can't help but wonder what happened.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just get into it. The big number everyone's been talking about, $43 million. That's what Snow White made opening weekend in the U.S.
Okay.
Now, just looking at that number, you might think, that's not too bad, right?
Yeah.
But when you consider the budget for this thing, it was reportedly more than $250 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, suddenly $43 million doesn't seem so great. You know,
Yeah.
kind of makes you rethink the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, a budget like that, you got to figure they spent a lot of money on CGI and all that. And you'd think they'd be expecting a much bigger return. So yeah, 43 million makes you think.
Exactly. And this wasn't exactly smooth sailing for the movie, even before it came out.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pre-release controversy, we'll call it. The decision to use CGI for the dwarfs, for example.
Right.
That was a big discussion online. And then Rachel Zegler, the star, she made some comments that sparked a lot of debate. It got to the point where Disney actually scaled back the premiere. They didn't do the usual big splashy event.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of building excitement for a movie.
Totally. I mean, if they're not confident enough to do the whole red carpet, big premiere thing, you got to figure something's up.
Yeah, for sure. And the critics, they didn't exactly help either. The Rotten Tomatoes score, 43%. So just barely fresh.
Oof.
I read one review that said, no poisoned apple, but it doesn't whistle either. I thought that was such a perfect way to put it. It's not terrible, but it's not exactly magical either.
Right, right. Like, nobody's saying it's the worst movie ever, but it's also not something people are going to be raving about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
just kind of there. Which makes you wonder about all these live-action remakes Disney's been doing. It's such a mixed bag. You've got The Lion King from 2019, made a ton of money, over $1.6 billion worldwide. And the reviews, they weren't even that great. Then you have Dumbo, also in 2019, opened a little better than Snow White, $46 million. Then Cinderella, from way back in 2015, that one did really well, almost $68 million on opening weekend.
Wow. Yeah, it's all over the place. I mean, some of them are huge hits, some are just okay. Like, what's the formula?
Right. Like, is it just name recognition? Or is it something more? The AP article even said that Snow White could be a new low point for these remakes. That's a pretty strong statement.
It is. It makes you wonder, is the audience kind of tired of these remakes? I mean, we all love the originals, but are we just not that interested in seeing them redone? Maybe.
Maybe. And it's not just in the U.S. either. Snow White made another $44.3 million internationally. So in total, it's at like $87.3 million worldwide.
Okay.
But even that is less than they were hoping for. They're aiming for $100 million.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's not just an American thing. This movie isn't really connecting with audiences anywhere.
It's really interesting. It's like there's this disconnect. Like Disney's putting out these movies, they're spending tons of money, but the audience isn't quite there.
Right. And so the big question becomes, what's Disney going to do?
Right.
They've got all these other remakes planned. Moana, Tangled, Lilo and Stitch coming out in May. After this, you got to think they're reevaluating their whole strategy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every movie's a learning experience, right? And Snow White is definitely teaching them something. Maybe they need to rethink how they approach these remakes, what stories they choose, how they update them, all that.
Yeah, for sure. It's like they're trying to walk this tightrope. They want to modernize these stories for a new audience, but they also don't want to alienate the people who love the originals.
Right.
And sometimes it feels like they're, tripping up a little bit.
Absolutely. It's a tough balance to strike. Like, take all the controversy around Snow White. Peter Dinklage, he spoke out against the whole thing a couple years ago, said it was backward.
Yeah.
That started a whole conversation.
Yeah.
And then Disney took out And the Seven Dwarfs from the title. They animated the dwarfs. They were trying to be, I guess, more sensitive, more modern. But then they got criticized from the other side, people saying it was too woke.
Right? It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. They're trying to please everyone, and it's just not possible.
I think you have the practical stuff, too. You know, delays, reshoots.
Right.
That all adds up. The budget gets bigger, which means the movie has to make even more money to break even. It's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely. Making movies is a business at the end of the day.
Right. Okay, but before we get too doom and gloom here, there are a couple of bright spots. The article mentions that Disney has had movies that started slow and then ended up doing really well, like Mufasa, The Lion King. That opened with only $35.4 million in the U.S., but globally it's made over $717 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Snow White, it doesn't have a ton of competition coming out soon. Plus, it got a decent cinema score, a B+, so maybe, just maybe, it'll have some legs.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, a good cinema score means people are liking it, even if the critics aren't thrilled. So word of mouth could help.
Fingers crossed, right? Hey, by the way, if you're enjoying this deep dive into the world of box office numbers and Disney remakes, do us a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot more fun stuff coming your way.
For sure.
Okay, now, zooming out a little bit. It wasn't just Snow White that had a rough weekend. The whole box office was kind of slow. Alto Nights with Robert De Niro, that only made $3.2 million. And it had a $45 million budget. That's...
Ouch. Yeah.
And Mickey 17. That one's still underperforming, too. Even Magazine Dreams, which had a limited release, that one's dealing with all the Jonathan Major stuff. It just feels like the whole industry's kind of struggling right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Alto Nights, Robert De Niro, Barry Levinson directing, and it barely made anything. That's a sign that something's up.
Exactly. The article says that the box office for 2025 is down almost 7% compared to last year, and it's down a whopping 38.6% compared to 2019. So even though Snow White was technically #1, the bigger picture isn't so great.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what's going on. Are people just not going to the movies as much anymore?
Maybe. The top 10 movies this weekend were Black Bag, Captain America, Brave New World, Mickey 17, Novocaine, The Alto Nights, The Day the Earth Blew Up, The Monkey, Dogman, and The Last Supper. Not exactly a blockbuster lineup.
No, not really.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Snow White and this whole box office situation, I think it's safe to say we've learned a few things. Making a movie, it's not easy. And getting people to actually go see it, that's a whole other challenge.
Absolutely.
There's all these factors, the history of the story, the pre-release hype, the reviews, the competition. And it seems like Disney, they're still trying to figure out how to make these remakes work.
Yeah. They've had some big wins, but they've also had some stumbles. And I think Snow White is a reminder that it's not as simple as just slapping a new coat of paint on an old story.
Yeah, you got to find a way to make it relevant, make it fresh. Otherwise, why bother?
Exactly. And that brings up a question for all of you listening. When you hear that a movie you loved as a kid is getting remade, what are your thoughts? What makes you excited? What makes you hesitant?
That's a great question to think about. Well, that's it for our deep dive today. If you like this discussion, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and we'll see you next time.